I feel that it's really critical for family stories to be shared from one generation to the next. I think that if we don't, we lose those voices. And when those voices go away, we are somehow diminished by that. I also think the world is diminished in some way if stories from a number of groups of people aren't shared and made available to everybody. I think that stories are our heritage. We're the only species who feels driven to tell stories as far as we know, or at least in the particular ways that we've chosen to. So I think we have to do that. I think we're depriving our children of something extremely valuable and important and necessary to their growth as human beings if we don't. When you leave one place and you go to another, you carry your stories with you. And sometimes the way you choose to tell them depends on how many of you there are in a given country. I was at a conference in Singapore and I attended this talk by a scholar of children's literature, and she talked about how when people first start telling, when a group of underrepresented people first start telling their stories for everybody else, they tend to start with traditional stories. They start with the old tales, they start with the old country. They tell folk tales, they tell mythological tales, they tell religious stories, because that becomes then important to carry into the new place. But then over the next few generations, those stories start to change. And then they begin telling, or I should say we begin telling, stories that blur the boundaries between the old place and the new place. The stories become about immigration, the stories deal with identity. And then you have a whole new generation of tellers who come along, and they tell fusion stories of what it's like to be of that culture, but in the new place. And I think all of those are important, and all of those play a role in the transitions we make when we move from one place to another. And whether or not you move voluntarily, or you're forced into moving, as people are when they are refugees, or they have to leave homes for devastating reasons, I think all these things hold true.